It is a pretty hot day. Everyone is covered in mud, sweat, more mud, bit of sun cream, and we are taking a very rare break for Yoni.
This has all been a Ranger-led project.
Rethinking the ways that we engage with our food, engage with our urban landscapes, and what the potentials could be.
We're going to have parts of the garden distributed to other groups. It's not just going to be a 1 month wonder.
We need residents of cities to be aware they can make green spaces.
A bit more exciting, a bit more imaginative, a bit more, sensational.
Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about what we're doing here today?
Yeah, my name is Yoni. I'm a landscape architect and gardener. And today we are finishing the install for the show garden at Hampton Court Garden Festival.
And it's called Aster of the Senses. How did that name come about?
I believe the Rangers decided on the name. They gave me a brief of creating a sensory food garden that was inspired by the logo and the 6-year anniversary for London National Park City. So with that information, I kind of just went and designed an edible food forest on hugel mounds with an edible meadow system and a wildlife pond with all edible plants. Yeah.
I have to say, when I first came this morning, I did not realise that everything was edible, and then I started smelling like the basil and the mint coming through, and I was like, hang on, this all smells great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the history of how you got involved in this is quite interesting. You were volunteering with Leslie at Stave Hill, and then the conversation started, and it kind of snowballed into you leading the whole project and designing the whole project.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how did that come about, and how intrigued were you about the concept?
I mean, I'm quite familiar with the Hampton Court show and all just general flower shows, being a gardener and designer. So I think when Leslie approached me about it, I was, it didn't seem like a very big project. She was saying, we want to do a really small garden at Hampton Court, and we could use some help. And she sent me the kind of information of what they needed for the submittal, and it was like, this is exactly what I do for work. So I'm happy to help and kind of send something out for you, and ended up here. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we all chuckled there when you said small initially, because it seems to have grown a little bit. I mean, this is probably quite a decently sized garden. What are the dimensions?
7 by 7 meters, so
Okay.
it's 49 square meters. Yeah.
And what's your process for kind of planning a garden like this? Obviously, you're super familiar with all the plants, but how do you kind of decide where everything's going to go? We've obviously got the pond in the middle. What's your process for mapping all that out?
We came up with a few iterations and collaborations with the Rangers and myself on the possibility of what could be. One of the proposals was doing kind of an edible hedge, an orchard, and we decided on doing a bit more of a food forest mounds. And I think we were interested in creating a very sensory journey. So as you walk into the space, you kind of come across this bend, and you don't necessarily see the wildlife pond, but you come across a kind of a musical instrument that was crafted by volunteers at Stave Hill. So you get some sound elements, you get touch, you get taste.
That's those pipes. Well, no, what are they? The bits of wood, and they.
Yeah, those wooden chimes that
Wooden
were
chimes.
made by volunteers. And, Louis, I think he's coming in with the mushrooms from Fat Fox mushrooms. So we'll be having some kind of live growing mushrooms in this space as well. And you kind of come across, this pond that was built by Froglife. So it's really about trying to create a sensory journey through the space, and something that evokes the many different park spaces at London National Park City. So trying to create that diversity of plants, palettes, textures, everything. So, yeah.
And here comes Louis right now with the mushrooms. He's just filling up with a cart of mushrooms, which is very exciting. But yeah, I mean, it is incredible how many different groups we have here. Obviously, we have London National Park City, but we've got the Orchard Project. We've got the team who are building the pond. So, many of us didn't know each other coming into this, and now we're spending a day together, or a few days together, planting and learning about what each other do as well. I've already learned so much from these conversations. But I'm curious to know, actually, where did the plants come from? Did you kind of buy them, or have they been donated, or like how do you acquire plants for things like this?
It's been a mix. I mean, most of them were purchased from different suppliers that our contractor will be able to tell you a little bit more about. One of them being Naturescape, which is a really great supplier, especially for like native plants, because a lot of the scheme does have native plants that, especially native plants that people don't really perceive as edible, but are in fact edible. So we have some of those, and some of them are grown by the contractor themselves at their community garden space. So we have some plants that were homegrown as well. It is quite overwhelming, I think. Especially when you're on an avenue of other people who are quite experienced designers, gardeners, have maybe a bit more resource kind of on hand to make something quite big. It feels like you have a lot to like kind of catch up on and do. So I think it's been a lot of me just honing in on what we need to do in our space as much as possible, and just getting what we need to get done and being a bit creative where we have certain limits. So it's been a huge help to have people here volunteering and getting it in and being patient with me in terms of my indecisiveness. But it is, it's quite it's a pretty full-on project. I think when I first got here on site with the contractor, I was like, wow, this is so small. It's way too small. And it's amazing how much you can fill into a small space, and how much more that you can still do in that amount. So it's been a lot of learning to see that you can actually cram a bunch into a really small space.
Definitely. I feel like you're quite good at sharing what you want to do and sharing your vision. So I've been stuck a few times and been like, what am I doing? And you're quite good at being like, oh, it needs to be facing this way, or we want it to be coming out of the hill. So you're good at bringing us on that journey with you, I think. And so obviously when people are coming here next week, what do you want their takeaways to be? What part of your vision do you want them to kind of have in their minds as they walk away?
I think to be okay with a certain chaos and messiness in terms of what. Oh, someone just fell.
Oh, they're fine. They're fine. They've said they're fine. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think in terms of what people might come away with is being okay with a bit of chaos, but knowing that like there's more potential for plants. Especially edible plants, than what you might typically see in a vegetable garden. I think for here, it's like, okay, how do we create a forest system that's fully edible, and kind of think about plants, especially perennials, that might be useful beyond the vegetable garden, and thinking about how we can think about edibles as also ornamental, and it's just rethinking the ways that we engage with our food, engage with our urban landscapes, and what the potentials could be.
Amazing. And we always try and encourage people to volunteer more and get more involved in these kind of projects. So I really like that you picked up on the kind of messy and chaos, and that's fine. So if someone was wanting to kind of get into something similar to what you do from like a volunteer perspective, do you have any advice for kind of budding garden designers if they're working particularly with small space or with edible plants?
Definitely volunteer at the many green spaces that are, of course, stewarded by rangers and outside of the ranger circle as well. I do work at a garden in Dulwich called Earth Tenders, and it is a food growing space, and I really enjoy teaching people how to grow food in different ways and understand plants and understand kind of how to empower yourself through gardening. I think when someone learns how just their first plant grows up and something that they sowed themselves, and that rich feeling that comes out of that is what I really love and enjoy about the process of gardening. So just get involved in your local spaces.
Yeah, I feel like for me it started with my first homemade mint tea, and it kind of escalated from there. Herbs and edible plants are such a good way to get involved and kind of try growing things without it kind of being too expensive. You're not trying to, plant a whole trough of food. So definitely a good entry point.
That is, ironically, but interestingly, my entry point was through baking.
Oh, wow.
So I started gardening like over 12 years ago because I just love baking so much. And then I was just questioning where like I wanted to bake things with seasonal produce and things like that. And I think it was just a natural connection and bridge to wanting to grow that food that I would be able to nourish myself with through baked goods.
Wonderful. That's really inspiring. All right. Well, yeah, we'll let you get back to it. It's lovely sitting in this shade, but it looks like we've got a bit more planting to do. But
Looking like he wants to jump to action.
yeah. Well, but yeah, thank you for speaking to us, and congratulations. This just all looks wonderful, and it's so exciting for London National Park City to be collaborating with you. So thank you for bringing us all together and bringing us on this journey with you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
London has been given the first ever national park city status.
London, the world's first national park city.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
Healthier.
And wilder.